Hey friends, in this video we're going to be building a modal pop-up using React. Firstly, we need to create a new folder where we'll store our application. So let's open Visual Studio Code and create a new folder by clicking on File and then New Folder. Next, we need to run a script to initialize our React app. To do this, open the command prompt and type in the following command: npx create React app Modal Popup. Here, Modal Popup is the name of our application. Once the initialization process is complete, we need to navigate to our application's directory by using the cd command followed by our application name. For example, if our application name is Modal Popup, we would type cd Modal Popup. Finally, we can run our React app by using the npm start command. This will launch our app in the browser and we should see the default React app running successfully. Let's get started by looking at the code. Here, we import React and the useState hook, which we'll be using to manage the state of our modal pop-up. We also import the CSS file and the MdClose icon from the React icons library. Import MdClose icon from the React icons library. To do this, open the command prompt and type in the following command: npm install React icons, save. Here, MdClose is the name of our icon which we use. Next, we define a new function component called Modal Popup. Export default Modal Popup. This line exports the Modal Popup component as the default export of the module so that it can be imported and used in other parts of the code. Inside this component, we declare a state variable called showPopup using the useState hook. Its initial value is set to false, meaning that the Modal Popup is not visible when the component is first rendered. Now let's look at the JSX code that this component will render. We start with a div element that has the class modal container. Inside this, we have a button element that has the class btn primary. This button will be used to show the modal pop-up when clicked. Next, we have a div element that has the class modal pop-up. This is our actual modal pop-up, which we'll be showing and hiding using the showPopup state variable. Inside this, we have two child div elements: modal border and modal form. Modal border is just a decorative element to give the modal pop-up a border. Modal form contains the actual content of the modal pop-up. Inside modal form, we have an MdClose icon. This will be used to close the modal pop-up when clicked. We also have a div element with the class modal content, which contains the main content of the modal pop-up. Inside modal content, we have an h2 element that says, "Stay with your business," and a P element that asks the user to sign up to ensure they don't miss the next promotion and other important events. We also have two buttons with the classes btn primary and btn secondary. The first button says Sign Up, and the second button says Next Time. Clicking the Sign Up button would presumably take the user to a sign-up page, while clicking the Next Time button would close the modal pop-up without taking any action. Finally, we use the showPopup state variable to control the visibility of the modal pop-up. We do this by setting the visibility and opacity CSS properties of modal pop-up based on the value of showPopup. And that's it. That's how you create a simple modal pop-up in React. You may look to this whole app.js code and fix any problems you find while developing. Let's create or open modalpopup.css to add some CSS code inside so we can add more features. Let's add a CSS code in Modal Popup web page. Let's start with the modal container class. This class sets the styles for the container that will hold the modal pop-up. We set a border, width, height, and positioning properties to center the container in the page. We also specify a custom font family. Next, we have the .ModalPopUp class, which styles the overlay that covers the page when the pop-up is active. This class positions the overlay at the top of the page and sets its width, height, and background color. We also use display, flex, and align items, center to center the pop-up vertically in the page. Then we have the .Modal border class, which creates a border around the pop-up box. We set a fixed width and height and use border and border radius properties to create a rounded border. The Modal form class styles the pop-up box itself. We set a fixed width and height, a border, and a rounded border. We also use transform, rotate, 5deg to skew the box slightly and create a more dynamic look. We also set a background color and use display, flex, and justify content, Flex N to position the content of the box to the right. Inside the .modal content class, we style the content of the pop-up. We use transform, rotate 5 degree to counteract the skew of the parent element and set some padding and text alignment properties. The close icon class styles the close button of the pop-up. We set a position property to position the button relative to its parent element and use cursor, pointer to make it clickable. We also set a transition property to create a smooth animation when the button is hovered over. Finally, we have the TNs, TN primary, and .tn secondary classes, which style the buttons inside the pop-up. We use display, flex, and grid gap to position the buttons side by side and set some padding, border, and background properties to make them look like buttons. That's it for the CSS code of this modal pop-up. Let's check out final output. If you enjoyed this video, it would only take a few seconds to like and share it, also to subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet, and hit the bell icon to get instant notifications about our new content. Stay tuned and keep learning, keep growing, and keep succeeding in your life. Thank you so much. Thank you.